Hey crafty friends, I'm going to be sharing the die cut inlay technique. It is super easy, but really makes a big impact on your card. I'm actually going to start with the speckled canopy die on a piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm going to emboss with this instead of die cut with it. So I'm going to place down like that rubber mat that goes underneath the paper, and your die cut's facing down, and then you have the embossing plate, like if you're going to do an embossing folder on top, you run it through and it's just going to emboss it. Then I thought it would be fun to do some simple watercoloring just to create a really pretty colorful background. And I want these colors to blend, so I'm going to use a blue, a pink, and a yellow. And I want it to be a little bit heavier at the bottom, and then I can blend it towards the top of the color. And then these colors will blend nicely together. So now I've got my pink. I'm going to just lightly brush that into the blue, give us a little bit of purple. And then I'm going to rinse that off because I want more pink at the top, not purple. So I didn't want to bring that purple color up. I'm going to get my brush wet again, add a little bit more to that pink paint to lighten it up, and move to the top. And then I'm going to go back down and blend those two colors just with some water, just to give it a nice little connection spot there, so it's not like a harsh line. You get a nice good blend. Then for my third color, I am going to do a yellow. Now I mentioned that this inlay die cut technique is super easy, but it really does make your card stand out. I'm going to be using a sentiment die for my technique, but you could do any kind of images, shapes, however you want that to be. And there's different, just lots of different ways that you can make your card pop using this technique. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a sentiment, and this sentiment is big, so it kind of takes up a good amount of space in the center of the card. Now that that's done, I want to do some splatter. I'm just using Sparks Mermaid Sparkle. It's kind of like it's a sparkly acrylic paint. You add a little bit of water, and I'm going to splatter this all over the back. And then I'm going to add a Be Shimmery. It's a watercolor shimmer. And I'm going to add that all over too because I really love splatter. I feel like it just adds a fun extra something to your card. And it kind of pulls together the whole card when you have multiple colors like this. Not that you have to do it, but I think it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to make sure that this is dry, and I do trim this down. I'm actually going to trim it down slightly smaller than an A2 size card panel, or excuse me, A2 size card base. And I'm just using my paper trimmer for that. I want to make sure I don't trim it too small for the largest die. Now I am going to be using the Meraki Moments Hello die, and there's 3 pieces to this. You have your shadow piece, then you have like your word die, and then you have like the more detailed word die. So I'm using the biggest shadow piece. I want to get this right in the center. I'm going to tape this down and run this through my die cut machine. Now it is going to flatten some of that embossing that we created. I personally didn't mind because the ink was catching the areas that were embossed, but if you don't want that to happen, do the die cutting first with your base image that you're going to inlay, then do the embossing technique like I did at the beginning. The next layer I'm going to die cut from white cardstock, and then the top layer I am going to die cut from black cardstock. And this is really going to pop and be so much fun. So I'm going to use all 3 layers. I'm going to keep that layer that we die cut from the watercolored panel. I'm going to keep that and use that as part of the inlay die cuts. Then from the Meraki Moments High stamp set, I am stamping the word friend on white cardstock with some black ink using my Misty. And then I can trim this out with my paper trimmer, and then that's going to finish off our sentiment. Behind that watercolored piece that we die cut our hole so we can inlay the die cuts, I am adding some foam adhesive because to inlay, well, not necessarily. I like to mention when I'm going to inlay, but you could inlay, if you say you did a blue background and you wanted to inlay a pink piece and not do dimension, you could do it that way too. But usually when I do my inlays, I am going to add some foam adhesive behind it. I'm going to tape this to my base, my card base. Now let's glue our inlay piece together. So I'm going to adhere that white hello to the background piece that we die cut, and then the rest of the letters in black and look at how this pops. I love it. What's going to be cool about this is when I inlay this, the color is going to be continuous. So that outside layer that you can see through the letters around the edges is going to be continuous with the background that's popped up. That's part of the interesting look with an inlay. So I'm going to use some liquid glue because I don't want this popping up. I'm going to use my tweezers. I'm just going to line it up in that hole and then gently press straight down and kind of pop it down into place. Now we have this beautiful inlay, but the color just continues to go. Isn't that so fun? And then let's add the rest of that sentiment again with a little piece of foam tape. You could add you'd add gems or anything else like that, but I'm just going to go with the splatter. But look at how pretty that looks. It's sunken back into the back of the card. The card base, card panel is popped up, and I just think it's so much fun. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope you have a wonderful day.